Tonight, I'm just telling you a good knife story. In my daytime job, I travel for business quite a bit, and this time I brought a couple little projects to work on and film for your enjoyment. But my ambitious plans were happily interrupted by a pawn shop find. And without further ado, here it is. To be honest with you, even though I'm a Benchmade collector, I was basically unaware of the existence of this model, which is Benchmade 756. There it sat in a display case with a bunch of obligatory pawn shop knives. I did not recognize it as a Benchmade at first because I did not see the butterfly from where I was standing. Typically, being an avid Benchmade collector, I can sniff them out from a mile away, but this time I was puzzled when I saw the butterfly. A Benchmade that I was not even aware of, but here it sat. And the price tag on it was on par with the maker. They asked for $250. And this is not what I ended up paying for it, but I'll talk about it a little later in the story. When you see an older Benchmade, unusual styling, premium materials, as opposed to their current production, Marvel-style re-releases of the same darn model year after year, you know you may be in for a good catch. What is it? I thought. That fuller on the blade triggered some response in my brain. I'm an avid collector of Benchmades, and one of my favorite designers is Shane Sibert. If the name sounds familiar, don't be surprised. He is the designer of Adamas family of knives. I have every model and most variations of this series, so I knew I was going to buy it. Once I realized all that, the price tag that the pawn shop had on it kind of made sense to me. When I closely examined it, I saw that it's a titanium handles, 20 CV blade, and that I was right about the designer, because here it is, the designer's logo. It is an authentic Benchmade collaboration with Sibert, and a quick search online told me this model 756 is called Micro Pocket Rocket, MPR. I recognized this for what it was and was very excited to negotiate a good deal. I'll talk about the final price later because there's some irony in it. All right, so after I completed the purchase, I rushed to my hotel room and I traveled with my knife maintenance tools that I bring to work on little projects when I'm away from all the busy events of my day-to-day life. I went to YouTube, and the first video that popped up was by Love Them Knives, who complained extensively about this particular unit that he got, this model. He was so disappointed with it, in fact, that he published a second video. In fact, he proceeded to bash this knife in the second video worse than in the first one. I mean, we're talking 7 years back when he and Nick Shabazz were the only two credible knife reviewers on YouTube. I bet his review, and basically this knife being way ahead of its time, both in construction and in price, destroyed any potential for sales. People just didn't buy it, and eventually Benchmade discontinued it, turning it over the course of the last 8 years into a rare, collectible, and desirable item for Benchmade junkies like myself. If you try to find in today's market an American-made knife with titanium handles and S20V blade, you will quickly run into Demco or Chris Reeve knives. Before I go into the issues that Love Them Knives enumerated, let me show you the issue I had personally with this knife. This. And when you follow up by hand, you know this feeling when the bearings are bumpy? Yes, it is on bearings. So these bearing bumps tell me that you see that. It's not by design, right? There's some kind of weird detent and keeps doing that. So usually that happens when somebody over-tightens the pivot. The bearings are mooshed into the washers. And I left it as it is for the purpose of this video. Now let's talk about several disappointments that Love Them Knives had with this particular unit.
This lock bar did not stay engaged. And if you watch that video, you'll know that if you just touch that, it just came disengaged. You understand what I'm saying? It's kind of like you got something and it's jammed up there and then all of a sudden it goes boing.
Oh man, for this knife it's such an easy fix though. See, this stop pin is hexagonal which means it's adjustable. Meaning, if you rotate it, different sides of this hexagon will present different level of lockup. So my knife has the same little issue where the lock doesn't engage very well. And I am going to attack it with a T6 driver bit. So here you go. One of the facets has a dot in the center. We'll start there. We're going to check it for the lockup. So in this position, how far can I rotate this pin? So it rotates and locks to the blade in this position. See, it's off center. That is not a correct engagement because eventually it will work itself out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to half close the blade and rotate it to this position with the facet being parallel with the spine of the handle. Okay, now I'm going to experiment with the lockup. A little better, but it still disengages too lightly. So we're going to repeat on the next facet with the hope that eventually we will arrive to a good lockup. And I feel like that might be it. Now I haven't adjusted the pivot yet, so it doesn't really flick. I'm trying to get it to flick so I can get a full engagement. There's definite improvement, but I am not quite there. To disengage, I actually have to actuate this lock bar. Let's just, for due diligence, move another facet. See how much narrower this one is? And right there, even with a light engagement, it's locked up. So we'll test this theory. I have to really... Yeah, good lockup right here. So we'll leave it here, but only for now. Before we go to other complaints that I saw in that video, I would like to also address the pivot tightness. It's way too tight, and I'm going to use the T10 bit to loosen it up. So I'm first going to go in the tightening direction to see, oh man, somebody torqued it. So there you go. Thank God for not Loctite. So I'm gonna move it out a little bit and check for rocking. No rocking because now this pin is serving its purpose. No rocking in any direction. Did the action improve? I would say a good amount of improvement. So still requiring some wrist. I am not ready to give up. I'm going to get in it to clean it. The assembly was straightforward, so let's take a quick peek inside. Look at that. So somebody was tightening, somebody ratcheted down on this pivot because I hope you can see. Let me try and have lighting challenging on the road. You can see nice, neat indentations in the channel that the bearings cut out for themselves in this washer. Good news is this side is intact, so this is how I'm going to reassemble it. But the washer is stamped and has sharp edges, so we're going to give it a little bit of a cleanup as well. All right, so I'm going to interrupt here and go clean the knife, see how it looks afterwards. You'll see the crud around the pivot. Guys, please, olive oil is not a knife lube. While the rest of the knife's parts were soaking, I used my diamond sharpening plate to clean the washer, deburr it on the side that was not damaged by the bearings, and I hit the high spots on the side that was damaged as well. I'm a little bit excited because as I was working on removing those stains, I made a discovery. Some of these stains on the washers proved to be stubborn. You can still see a little discoloration, but they're like brown rust basically, which I didn't realize when I first opened it up. I thought it was just a stain from lubricant, but it was stubborn. It wasn't coming off, and I didn't want to use something like a screwdriver tip because these Hoto driver bits are heat treated to 60 HRC, so I didn't want to put scratches especially on titanium, because there's some stains on titanium as well. And then I realized that my O-Pen 2 has this graphite tip that actually is a pencil. You see, it writes like any pencil. And I've been using it as such, but I thought it's sharp and it's harder than your number 2 pencil, so I gave it a shot, and it actually worked really well. Knocked off some of this stuff, except on this pivot color. I can't get rid of stains completely, so I'm gonna run it a couple of times on my sharpening plate here, just very lightly. And I knocked off all the high spots on these washers, and they're hardened washers, judging by how difficult it was to get anything off of them. So the quality was there, kind of trying to justify the price. And I totally get it. In 2018, when Love Them Knives encountered this knife for the first time, it was harder to justify $340 on a small, vanity knife. By the way, all my efforts paid off once I reassembled. Everything is running as it should. It's still not a drop shot knife. Maybe from this position, yeah. But full lockup, no fluffing around here, nice engagement, a reasonable flick, It's not a 2026 flipper, it's definitely a 2018 variety. And back then it was expensive. In today's market, if you are looking for a fundamentally user-friendly mid to small size EDC, without a doubt, bug out is out. It's nobody's popular knife anymore. In fact, it's a meme knife nowadays. If people spot you with a bug out, they think you really have no idea about knives. It did its job. It brought a lot of people into the business, but it's been replaced by these two guys. This is a full-size MSI and a Par 3, So if you are comparing prices, I think this is like around $200 right now, $192. I think the absolute basic one without any blade treatment. And these guys are also in the mid 100s. But if you were to look at an American-made knife with this expensive word in it, titanium, you would end up quickly with something like this. Now, this has a full titanium liner, also crossbar made out of titanium, titanium hardware, titanium thumb studs, and titanium pocket clip, made by Toor Knives. That's their relatively new model called Drop Wing. And it runs like any good old Benchmade on washers, a little smoother actually, if not faster. Right? This is a $350 MSRP knife as compared to $340 in 2018. Now, do you get a better deal here or here? No, they're a total wash. This is very practical, very good knife, but don't tell me that in 2026 the price no longer makes sense. There are a lot of expensive words in this knife. Titanium scales, titanium pocket clip, CPM 20 CV blade steel, US made blade steel, right? Sibert collaboration, discontinued production. Those are all expensive words, and that's what you pay for. Before I tell you what I paid for it, let's listen to Love Them Knives for just a second. It's kind of funny.
Everybody was basically making the same comment, which is $340 is just, my God. I just, nah, it's just not worth the money. It's not worth $340. If this was $180, but then, what are you going to use this for? Seriously.
Take a wild guess what I paid for this used one in 2026. Exactly $180 out the door. Tax included, rolled right out with it. Now, some of you, I guarantee, already typing a comment that there's no way they would pay that much for a used knife. For those of you guys, let's take a very quick glimpse at what they go for on eBay, for example. Another thing I did, I used my USB-C microscope to look at the edge, and realized that even though the person carried it a lot, it still has the factory edge. And it's quite sharp, actually. I hope you can see it in the photos. So to the question, what would I even use a knife of this size for? Boy, do I have a lot of answers. I carry a lot of small premium knives. Examples are Spyderco McBee, Medford, Hunden. You know, I like to have a supplemental knife to something like this. Typically, I am carrying a larger blade and a smaller blade. And because I work in an office environment, you know, sometimes I do things like sharpening toothpicks or picking my nails. You know, I'm not going to pull this out and do it. You know, I'm doing what any knife guy enjoys doing. I do this when I'm thinking, you know, and now that I tuned it up, it's very satisfying. It makes me feel good. Is that not enough? Yeah. How about that?